Okay, welcome to Elected, a podcast for women in and around Canadian politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder, and today you're like the most most repeated guest ever actually on the podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Minister Anita Anand is here, and I love you, so
I love you.
I would have you on all the time. You could be my co-host if you weren't so busy working for the government. And
one day.
Yeah, maybe. So thank you. You're here for Stampede.
Here for Stampede, and I love Alberta. Just hanging out, and this is my first stop actually.
Yeah,
so great.
Thank
to see
you. Yeah. Well, let's ease into the day then by starting out. So what are you doing this trip? Because we're going to keep this conversation. I really want to just have a conversation with you and like not about the politics, because I think that everything else and actually informs the politics. So what are you doing on this trip that you haven't done before in Calgary?
So the last time I was here, and indeed the time before, I was Minister of National Defense.
Right.
And now I am President of Treasury Board. So my day is really going to be spent meeting with stakeholders in that capacity. I'll be meeting with the Calgary Chamber and doing an event with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. So these are important stakeholders for us as a government, especially at Treasury Board, to understand the concerns that businesses large and small have. But more than that, when I've been at Stampede before, there's a vibrancy in the air that I really love. And it's a very positive vibe. And so I'm really excited about that as well. People have been so friendly, including my caucus colleagues across the aisle, who have welcomed me to Calgary before. And so hopefully when I run into them, that'll be the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what happens in the House thankfully doesn't stay in the House, right? For the most part.
Does stay in the House.
Does it? Yeah. What happens in the House for the most part stays in the House. Did I came out wrong? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, but
well, yeah, I will say that I try to build positive relationships with everyone.
Yeah.
And so that has been the case in every portfolio. And I really, as I said, enjoy coming to Stampede. That's one of the really amazing things about being in government, the number of people you get to meet.
Yeah.
And like you.
Well, I think it's like such a privilege to meet people from so many different walks of life and who have had so many different experiences. Yeah, I think that's a part of like what makes politics magical.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else makes politics magical to you?
Well, I was just in our conversation before we started here. I was thinking about some of the similarities that you and I have in our own lives, and thinking about the future of our country based on some of those similarities. So you and I both married people who don't look like us. And I think that is beautiful in terms of the type of country that we have, an incredibly diverse country that welcomes people from all walks of life and creates a space where cultures and diverse communities can thrive.
Yeah.
And that's amazing for our kids and grandkids. And so I'm super grateful to live in this country.
Yeah. It's the promise of like our children. I think I spend a lot of, especially right now, just because of where the world is, thinking about the world that they're going to inherit and how we can make sure that, they get as best a version of that as possible. And that, it's not just good for them, but, good for all kids who come from all different circumstances. That's like does that fuel you in some ways, thinking about your daughters? And yeah.
So I have 4 kids, 3 daughters and one son, and they're in their mid to late 20s. And I'll just say that they're launching or launched, and they're going to be building their own lives. And so very much on my mind is the future for our kids and grandkids. And that has many permutations, that broad thought. We can speak about the environment and the sustainability issues that our country is facing in terms of climate change and natural disasters.
Yeah, when my first son was born in 2017, he was born in August, and the first time we took him for a walk, actually, I had a hard time walking because I was so tired, but also the air was filled with forest fire smoke. And so that made it hard for us all to breathe, but also for him as a newborn, right? And so far in Calgary, we haven't had smoke from forest fires yet, but that is a very real possibility now every year, right? In that way.
Exactly. The first time I was ever at Jasper, I brought my dad there. He was a surgeon, and when he retired, he painted full time, and the one place he wanted to go was Jasper. So I took him to Jasper, and there was smoke everywhere. And it really drove home the point that we have to protect our planet.
Yeah.
And we need policies that do that. So in terms of the future, though, for our kids and grandkids, it's everything, though. It's the environment, it's housing, it's affordability. It is ensuring that our country is going to be well protected, safe and secure in terms of our national security and our multilateral alliances. And so those are the issues that are on my mind all the time. I love being with my family.
Yeah.
And
do you get enough time with them?
I feel a little tug on my heartstrings every time I'm not with them, including today.
I'm sure.
When they're all together at home. But I'll just say that is my true happy place when I'm with my kids and my husband. But there are other important things in our country that we have to pursue. And so I say that often to myself. I will also say, though, I was a professor, as you know, for 25 years. So I intend to go back there one day. And I'm on leave from the University of Toronto. So corporate and securities law was the area I taught. I'm not sure if that's going to be my area going forward.
People might want to talk to you about other things.
We'll see when the time comes. But, 25 years in a career is a long time. And so I miss the universities a lot. Although universities have been going through some hard times themselves.
Yeah, I don't think anything is untouched these days.
Exactly. And how have you benefited from any federal programs like?
The ideal answer would be yes, but the true answer is no.
True answer is only
no.
Not.
And I honestly don't. For the most part, I don't think that small businesses really are, to be honest. Even, from an advocacy level, you're going to the chamber, and I've gone to chamber events in the past, they really advocate for large corporations more than small businesses. And I know that that's not necessarily what they would want to hear from me. But, if you small business owners are honestly too busy being small business owners to go to meetings like that. If they're not even invited.
I'll have to see when I go to the chamber next, but I know small businesses benefited from the CEBA loan program.
Yes. Well, and so the store opened, actually this month is the 3-year anniversary of the store. So it opened 3-year anniversary. So I opened in July 2021. So I didn't actually, I didn't qualify. If I didn't qualify, I didn't apply for any programs.
So when I met you in 2022.
Yeah.
You've just been open for
A
year?
year. Yeah.
Wow.
So before that, the business started from our basement.
And what gave you the idea for this amazing business?
The idea for the store came in 2020 in the fall, winter. And I thought that, like the store was, or the business was, was existing. I was managing it. And I thought that in a post-COVID world, because at the time I thought that was something that was possible, like just no COVID. I don't know how I thought we would just like eliminate it and it would be gone. That people would really want to find community. And so the store was my way of creating a space for that community for women in and around politics.
You've done that.
Well, yeah, I appreciate
amazing.
you saying that. Maybe not in the way that I imagined. I mean, there's still a lot of things that I haven't done in the store that I had wanted to. And that was really around managing COVID and the risks. And I was really cautious because of my children being so young. Not just them, but like any child who, because we were waiting, which you were responsible for, was delivering those very precious vaccines.
Crazy.
Yeah, right? That seems like a long time ago.
That it was all that.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so,
and I had just been in politics.
I know you were
like
brand new.
A blink of an eye.
In the most, what you probably thought was a low profile ministry.
Well, I told you, right? Somebody said to me, another cabinet minister said to me, don't worry, no one is going to know who you are.
Yeah.
That was the day of our swearing in 2019. And that was true for about 5 months.
And then you were on tarmacs of airports, receiving.
My heart was beating so hard.
Yeah, that's, but the world has changed so much since then.
And I think we never really talked about the way in which the world has changed.
I agree.
And the fact that our entire country, our entire economy shut down.
Yeah.
Absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah.
And there have been so many repercussions
culturally
that we haven't
fiscally.
Yeah. And emotionally.
100%. Well, and that's the thing, there were so many things that I think we were good at, maybe contemplating during COVID around like kids' mental health and, the way the federal government addressed, the fiscal challenges of, people's incomes being, decimated, for example, or all of those different things. And then it, unfortunately, COVID took and is taking so long, and the rush to just get back to quote unquote normal, those things have gotten lost. And I think we still see the consequences of that, like the studies that are being done around the effects of kids on kids, their learning, their mental health, their
and the way
regulation,
the way they learn.
Yeah. The reliance on devices.
And then, the broader community, the elderly.
Yeah.
And the workforce as a whole, different sectors of the workforce, supply chain resilience.
The impacts on women. Yeah.
We should do another podcast on this alone.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I think sometimes, in how many years will CNN or CBC do a retrospective, right? Or how many years will it be before there's a museum exhibit on COVID?
Artifacts.
Exactly.
COVID. Masks.
Yeah. Well, even actually, there's an art installation across the street. It's a huge glove.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I don't know. I haven't seen the new exhibit over that, but
the first, if it was February 2020, and I got called into a boardroom to talk about PPE.
Yeah.
And I'm writing down PPE in my notebook. ? And it became everything we did. And it was the same thing that we had to diversify our supply chains. We had to build up the domestic capacity to produce. And we did do that as a government. We did build up our domestic capacity as well as source product from external jurisdictions and obviously got enough vaccines for our entire population by July 2021. But the work goes on. And
even contemplating the conversation that I don't think anybody really wants to have is what happens if it happens again, right? If it's not, a COVID-like virus, if it's avian influenza or, something else. I mean, how are we going to deal with that as a society now in a place where more or less almost half of the population is so wary of being what they consider to be being told what to do or, being defiant in different ways. There's a trial going on right now in Lethbridge in southern Alberta with some of the people who blockaded the Coots border crossing, who were alleged to conspire against killing police officers. Like all of these things are still playing out, right? What will the world be like? How will Canada deal with something of a similar nature? Like, are we going to pull together or is it going to be,
Yes. So I know one thing, that our federal public service really got the job done for Canada.
Yeah.
In terms of the procurements and getting benefits out the door, the CERB and the CETA loan, for example. So I have confidence in the public service to rise to the challenge, as they have done numerous times before, including during the pandemic. I think the area that we can focus on in terms of building those bridges is our relationships with provinces and our relationships with industry and building that base of domestic capacity so that we're not reliant on other jurisdictions.
Well, and seeing as we're sitting in Alberta, I wish I could say that, we just rejected dental care. When I say we, it's, not me personally, because I wouldn't have rejected that offer, but, not everyone's going to get, go along again in that situation. Not that they did that in the first place, but, in a ever increasingly polarized place where some people just seem to want to disagree for the fun of disagreeing.
Well, and then you overlay our constitutional structure onto that scenario that you just mentioned. And then those tensions are further exacerbated given the provincial federal jurisdictional divide in terms of our constitution. And so you're exactly right. Like some of these problems seem intractable and they definitely call for leadership that builds bridges.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you build that bridge in an increasingly polarized time? Like, how do you do that personally?
So I thought and still think that coming into politics would be an opportunity to exemplify professionalism, decorum, respectful conversation. And that's what I try to pursue every day in the House of Commons, at committee, in my riding, and nationally. And I think that is the starting point for building bridges, to treat the person you're speaking with that respect and hope that they accord that respect back to you. Because after all, we are all human beings and we should be able to disagree respectfully.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's hard.
It's very hard.
It's very hard.
But I personally don't know another way.
Yeah.
And so that has to be the starting point for building the bridge.
Yeah.
I hear you. And we can work together to find a solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's, even people who don't, it's in that disagree, like people who just don't agree, right? Like actually, I had one day there was a woman in the store and she and I were talking about like healthcare and her daughter and her daughter or adopted daughter, I think was Indigenous and then this other woman just happened to come in off the street and overheard our conversation and joined it. So the woman who had been in the store first was very supportive of the provincial NDP. The woman who came into the store, very supportive of the UCP and Danielle Smith. And just so happened to be Indigenous as well herself. And so the way that they came at the conversation, they had things in common. And what I think underlying shared values, but how they each saw the situation was vastly different. One was, for example, the conversation even took a turn to the CPP, to the Canada Pension Plan. One woman wants the CPP to remain invested and managed by the federal government. The other woman wants to see it run by the government of Alberta. And, they're having this conversation and, they left the store not like it was respectful and they agreed that they wouldn't agree.
Mm-hmm. And you provided the forum for that debate.
Well, I will say I was really nervous and I was standing there actually kind of in the middle of them. And I remember my hands being, clenched pretty tightly because, that's actually, that is what I imagined in the store. But, that kind of that respectful dialogue and the ability to disagree. How do we have more of that though?
Well, we say certain things are out of bounds.
Yeah.
Name calling, ad hominem attacks, undermining the integrity of the person who has a differing viewpoint. Those are all starting points for respectful conversations. And I think that we owe it to our kids, as well as our history as a country, to build a democracy where respectful conversation thrives, not just exists, but thrives.
Yeah.
And there's work to do. And there will be cases where we agree to disagree. But I think coming to the table in a spirit of openness and respect has to be what we do as leaders.
Yeah. The challenge for me, because even, the woman who wants to see the pension, the CPP brought to Alberta. She was like, she wanted to convince me. And I happen to be of the other position. I do think it's better off with remaining with the federal government. But she was like, you need to take part in a telephone town hall that was being put on by the government of Alberta so I could, hear their side of things. And I was like, I have heard their side. It's not that I'm not open to hearing other positions. It's that I have heard it and it has informed me to be on the other side of the issue. And, like, am I part of the problem as well? Because but there has to be a willingness on the other side to also come to challenge themselves to be informed, right? And to be open to the possibility that maybe they're not on the right side of the issue.
By all means, I'm actually talking about just even stepping back.
Yeah.
For us to have a democracy that thrives.
Right.
Regardless of the issue.
Yeah.
We really need to be in a place where the conversation that exists is one where each side or every side realizes that they may not be right. We may not be right, but we believe this to be the case. And we may differ from our opponents on the other side of the house, but they are still Canadians and we respect this democracy in this country.
Yeah.
And so I really feel this palpably. And I think it's the case not only for a thriving democracy, but a country as a whole, regardless of the sector that we're in.
Well, and I mean, even on the way to the store today, because, I was thinking about, our conversation today and, what we're going to talk about. And, there's so many things happening in the background. The UK is going to the polls today. France, like US. Some really big things are happening, even think about like Argentina, what's happening in Africa, how did we have to but I think what I keep coming back to is the focus on people, right? Not like what's best for Canadians. It's not about one individual.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. So, hello. I mean, I think this is a good way to end the podcast for today, is because the minister's taking a phone call from the Prime Minister of Canada. So, thanks for listening. And I hope you've enjoyed today's episode.
Thank you very much.
Yes.